Should I trust my thoughts? Should I trust the voices in my head, what I've been thinking? Should I trust that? How trustworthy is that? You know, you've probably heard people talk about, or maybe you've even been a proponent of, like, don't trust your feelings, right? Feelings aren't trustworthy. If you make your decisions based on feelings, you're gonna live a herky-jerky life. It's gonna be roller coaster, you know, because you're up one day and down the next. So if you just go, well, I feel this way, so I'm gonna act this way and I'm gonna do this thing. What happens when next week you feel different and you're like, dang, but I made that decision that week. So then you're gonna just keep making feelings decisions, and your feelings are unpredictable, and your feelings sometimes will tell you lies, but they're real. Sometimes they're not true, but sometimes they are true, right? Which is why you hear other things like, trust your heart, man. Trust your heart. What's your heart saying to you? Trust your heart. Well, what's the Lord saying? I don't know. How do I know? Well, sometimes the Lord speaks to you through impressions in your heart. Well, that's a feeling, but you told me not to trust my feeling, but should I trust my feeling? I don't really know. Is my feelings trustworthy? Let's think about listening to yourself. Let's think of some self concepts, like self-care, caring for yourself, a me day, a you day. I'm gonna do some things for myself, okay, self-care. But then there's self-indulgent. Self-indulgence, we cross the line, I'm overindulging myself. But have you ever not been sure what's up? Like you're out there getting your mani-pedi, and while you're getting your mani-pedi, there's a voice in your head going, you're so self-indulgent. Well, you could be doing this, you could be doing that. Have you ever had somebody ask you for something you could have given, but you didn't because you needed to save it, and so you told somebody no? They asked you for some time or some energy or some money, and technically you had it, but you were feeling somewhat depleted, and so you decided to tell them no, and there's a part of you that's like, you selfish. That's another selfish versus selfless. Self-absorbed, self-aware. Well, how do I become self-aware? Well, if you're gonna become self-aware, you gotta go inside enough. You gotta think about yourself enough. You gotta go inside your own head and spend enough time with you, thinking about you, to where you can be self-aware, which everyone universally says is a good thing. But then if you're in your own head too much, you're self-absorbed and all you do is think about yourself. Self-centered, bad thing, but yet you should have a sense of self. If you're so selfless, you know, they say, well, being selfless isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. That's good, but you could think of yourself so less that you lose a sense of who you are. So we think not being self-centered means you put something else at the center and you orbit that, right? Like you become a parent and this little human shows up and they start exchanging oxytocin, you know, and all these brain chemicals. So I feel bonded and responsible. So now my resources, my time, my energy, my money, they're at the center of my universe, and now I'm orbiting my child. I'm orbiting them. Everything's about that, because I don't want to be self-centered. I got my kid here, and so I'm taking care of them and saying no to me, and I wake up thinking about them and worrying about them and trying to help them. Or maybe it's not your kid. Maybe you fall in love with somebody and you want to be a good spouse, you want to be a good wife or a good husband, and so I put this other person at the center and I begin orbiting them because I don't want to be selfish, be self-sacrificing. So I sacrifice me, and I put them at the middle, and I'm running around them. Or maybe my career, because I've got great ambitions and dreams. And so I wake up thinking about this. I get up early and I stay up late, and I want to be a good teammate, and I give of myself, and so I'm orbiting this. And then you show up at church, and the preacher's like, you got it all wrong. Because anything you put at the center of your life other than God is an idol. Your kids can be an idol, and your spouse could be an idol, and your career and your ambitions and good things, when they become God things, become idols. And so they say, put Jesus at the center. Jesus, okay, and so Jesus is now at the center, and now I'm orbiting him. And y'all, I've been around now for a minute. I'm 42 years old. I grew up in church, and I've seen good people come and take everything out and put Jesus at the center, and I've seen them burn out too. I've seen them burn out too, because Jesus is outside of me, and I'm trying to serve for him, and I'm trying to do it all, and I'm orbiting him. And I realize that we have a fundamental misunderstanding about what actually happens when you come into relationship with Jesus. Because this, by the way, is when you read the Old Testament, what the nation did. And they did it, actually started out symbolically you had the tabernacle, which when they were mobile, they were homeless, they were nomads, they had a tabernacle which contained the presence of God, the Spirit of God. So they put the presence of God in the center of the tabernacle, and everything was around it. Everything revolved around it. When they finally got a home, they built a temple. The presence of God was there, and everything was around that. And they ran themselves ragged, and they couldn't keep up, and they were trying to please God by circling him and orbiting him, and they burn out. And then what happens is Jesus comes and he dies on the cross for our sin, and he forgives the debt that we couldn't pay, and then he sends his Spirit to live inside of us. And the Apostle Paul says, hey guys, if you're still orbiting Jesus and you're thinking of him as outside of you, and you're running around him and running yourself ragged trying to please him and trying to earn his favor, and you don't understand about what you should understand about his presence. Okay, what he says in 1 Corinthians 3, he says, don't you know that you are the temple of God and the Spirit of God dwells in you? Dwells in you. He says it in chapter 3, and then he reiterates it in chapter 6 in case you missed it the first time. He said, don't you realize your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? I want to give you 3 paradigm shifts. The first 2 kind of fast. The third I'm going to spend a little time on. But the first paradigm shift when you come into relationship with Jesus is that I do things with God instead of for God. That you are the temple. That the Spirit of God lives in you. So a Jesus-centered life is not you taking other things out of the center and putting him in the center and running laps and orbiting him. It's that he lives at the center of you. He is inside of you. So everywhere you go and everything you do isn't to try to earn his happiness for you or get him off your back or get him on your side. He's not on your side, he's inside. He's inside of you. And so the first paradigm shift is that we don't do things for him. You can burn out doing things for him. It's with God. With God, with God. It's in him we live, move, and have our being, but it's in us he lives, moves, and has his being.